Hello everyone. So recently Emirichu has made a video about her D&D character, or at least that's what I'd assume the video is, if I can just get my mask to work. Okay, there we go. So basically she's released a video about a D&D character, and I'm content starved. I need content. So, yeah. I'm reacting to it because I have nothing better to do. Also, I play D&D, so that's something.
So in my last sketchbook tour, I briefly mentioned an old D&D character I made years ago, and a lot of people were interested in hearing about her story. So today, I'll be talking about Plumeria, my fairy bard.
Ew,
While
bard.
I've never really been super into the fantasy genre, I've
Uncultured.
always really enjoyed the idea of fairies and magical powers ever since I was a kid. I mean, I believed in the Tooth Fairy at one point. I watched a lot of Winx Club and Ojamajo Doremi on Saturday mornings back when 4Kids was still a thing. Dragons and elves and high fantasy stories of adventurers going on long journeys in search of a mystical artifact. Cute girls with wings and magic powers. Now you had my attention.
That's
I guess
so
I never really grew out of
Emirichu.
that, because when my friend asked if I wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons for the first time back in college, I said, I want to be a fairy!
A fairy? I don't know if you can do that.
I'm pretty sure there are some
wings,
homebrew
you could
sprites.
always be an Aarakocra.
Oh wait, yeah, hang on. I have this. We're going way off topic here, but like, I have a D&D Beyond account, if I can just access it. Okay, you don't need to see it right now, but basically, I have made a homebrew for, like, the Blessed Sprite and the Blessed Pixie, and also this mask still isn't working right, but okay. Basically, it's a homebrew fairy race. I'm pretty sure there's way more people who have made way better fairy races than me, but I have made a homebrew fairy race on D&D Beyond. It's called the Blessed Pixie. It's called the Blessed Sprite, or the Blessed Fae. You can search it up, try to find it, see if it's by me, but yeah.
Or an Aasimar. If you want Fae ancestry, I guess you could be an elf, or even a half-elf. And if you want to be small, you could be a gnome.
What?
Combine
I don't want to
them.
be any of those. I want
I
to
wanna be a
cute
fairy.
Alright, screw it. Why
This is
not? We can
Joe
make
Cat.
it
I think
work.
this is
Go
Joe
look up a
Cat.
homebrew.
Yay! And so my charismatic fairy bard Plumeria was born, named after one of my favorite flowers.
Nice.
I remember at the time thinking Plumeria was a super cute and unique name for a character. And then Pokemon Sun and Moon happened. And then Fire Emblem Heroes happened. So, not as unique as I thought. But in my defense, these two hadn't existed yet at the time of
I
Plumeria's
didn't
creation.
read those.
I'm assuming
Well, yeah,
you're
see
familiar with
them.
what
Damn
Dungeons
it,
and
I'm gonna
Dragons
get
is,
canceled
but
now.
if not, then, what's the easiest way to describe it? It's
It's a game where you can do whatever you want and everyone dies after 2 sessions.
complicated version of playing pretend with your friends.
Yeah, that's basically
your
it.
fantasy-themed OCs group up together and go on adventures while one person builds a world and story around
That's
you.
me. That's me.
I highly recommend
90% of
you
the
watch
time.
Joe Cat's Crap Guide to D&D.
Oh my god, I
in
love
particular,
those
his Dungeon
videos.
Master one, because there's
Okay, again, we're going off topic, but you know what? Content.
delightful.
So, I have watched all of Joe Cat's videos, at least the ones about D&D, and I've actually recorded his races rap and his Dungeon Master Crap Guide to DM.
To watch, and they give you a pretty good idea on how the game is typically played. Unfortunately, this video will not be a detailed retelling of the campaign that I used her in, because, to be honest, the campaign only lasted a few sessions, so we didn't get very far. And in between moving from place to place, I lost the character sheet I made for her. Turns out, having a consistent D&D schedule that works for everyone gets a lot harder when everyone starts working and moving and dealing with the responsibilities
Is it bad
of
that
being
I
a
feel this
full-fledged
even though
adult.
I'm in
I just
not
remember
even in high
I really
school?
liked to use and abuse the sleep spell and vicious mockery.
But how do you use and abuse the sleep spell in Vicious Mockery? Like, I mean, doesn't Vicious Mockery give you, like, disadvantage on the next attack roll? But other than that, it's just a d4 damage, and the sleep spell works on a group of really, really low health targets, like freaking kobolds. But okay.
So, this video will actually be less about the Dungeons & Dragons game we played and more about Plumeria's story and how I imagined her world to be like.
Imagine.
Back when I first made her character sheet, I spent a lot of time in class doodling and thinking about her background and what fairies were like in this world. I even found some doodles and notes that I jotted down back in college during lectures that I probably should have been listening to.
Yeah, you probably
I don't know if there's like an official lore for fairies in Dungeons & Dragons, but if there is, then it's safe to assume that whatever lore I came up with is separate from any existing official D&D
We'll see,
lore.
we'll see.
I don't know how this stuff works. I'm just here to tell you about my OC. So, where does your story begin? Well, in this fantasy world, fairies lived in little colonies. Hang on a second. I don't think my voice
that's
is
actually pretty accurate, though.
you in this world. Let me go get someone. Hang on.
That's pretty accurate.
In this fantasy world, fairies live in little colonies, concealing themselves from anyone who might disturb their peaceful lives.
No, but this is pretty accurate to Pixies.
Spring and summer fairies were the most common of all.
Oh, okay, now
and
we're getting into more
oftentimes their colonies consisted of both types. They liked to live in warm or temperate climates.
This sounds a lot like Pixies.
So much that there wasn't much difference between them, except for the months they were born in. These fairies had varying insect wings that determined what kind of job.
Hang on. So if it's based on when they were born, then doesn't that mean that, like, if assuming that fairies have the same pregnancy cycle as humans, wouldn't that, which probably wouldn't be the case, but assuming that, wouldn't that mean that a lot of fairies are doing it in fall and winter? Or am I just an idiot?
Better suited for. For example, fairies with dragonfly wings were likely to be messengers between colonies because of their speed. Fairies with bee wings might pollinate flowers just as a regular bee would.
Wait, but that doesn't even make sense. Bee wings
might choose to be fighters to defend their colonies.
Okay, this is good.
Those with cicada wings were the loudest of all, and they typically served as lookouts and were in charge of announcements.
And were stupidly annoying.
Moth-winged fairies were usually nocturnal and took on night shifts for the fairies who were active in the daytime. Not every fairy had a designated job, and many chose to simply live comfortably in their whimsical safe havens.
This sounds a lot like Pixies.
Autumn fairies had wings that resembled leaves instead of insect wings. And while summer and spring fairies had an affinity to insects, autumn fairies had an affinity to small woodland creatures.
This looks like something that would be...
While they didn't often interact with one another, summer, spring fairies and autumn fairies were generally friendly to one another, and they had more frequent encounters during the passing of seasons.
Yeah, this sounds a lot
Winter
like
fairies were the most mysterious and elusive of all.
Okay.
Few had ever laid eyes upon one. Their wings appeared to be made of ice or glass. Nobody knew if they truly spoke. Some say they're so quiet that their voices can be mistaken for the sounds of snowfall. Many have been deterred from seeking out their magic because of rumors that say if you anger a winter fairy colony, your village will be cursed with a winter that lasts 100 years.
We'll just use wish and get rid of that.
Nobody knows if there's any truth to these claims, but it's assumed that the magic that allows them to exist in such harsh climates isn't something to be trifled with.
This actually sounds really good.
In one of the spring and summer fairy colonies, there lived a summer fairy by the name of Plumeria, who worked in a tavern as an entertainer with her enchanted flute, which she lovingly named Nightingale. She had the wings of a June bug, which meant she wasn't a very fast flyer, but that didn't mean much to her when she spent most of her days entertaining tavern patrons and basking in their praises and adulation.
This is so Bard.
The only thing Plumeria loved more than being the center of attention was her dear sister Amaryllis,
who dies,
a gentle spring fairy who spent most of her time looking after the flowers
Odds are 9
and
to 1 that she
plants
dies.
that grew around the colony. Plumeria also had a great distrust and prejudice against